Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're totally decoding the hidden mechanics of water damage and disaster recovery, specifically for coastal homes. We're going to look at this through the lens of the real-world protocols used by First Choice Water Damage Restoration. They're an industry leader operating right out of the coastal environment of Winthrop, Massachusetts. So whether you live right by the ocean or you just want to understand the actual science behind structural recovery, this is going to be an incredibly insightful ride. We have to start with a pretty cold reality that initial flood, it's really just the tip of the iceberg. You might think that once the water stops flowing and you mop up the puddles, the worst is over. No way. The truth is, the absolute most severe threats to your home, the ones causing massive structural failure and major health hazards, are happening completely out of sight, long after the floors look dry. Here's our roadmap for today's explainer. First, we'll cover the coastal water threat. Then, we'll look at the 48-hour mold window, break down the 3 categories of water, walk through the professional restoration process, and finally, we'll navigate the tricky world of insurance and costs. All right, let's jump right into Section 1, the coastal water threat, and Winthrop's unique environmental hostilities. Winthrop's peninsula location basically means homes there are fighting a multi-front war. You've got storm surges pushing ocean water right into aging storm drains, especially around places like Point Shirley. Plus, the salt air is actively accelerating corrosion on roofing and plumbing systems every single day. Add in a naturally high water table that keeps basements perpetually damp and older homes with pipes that just inevitably give out during those harsh winter freeze-thaw cycles, well, you've got a perfect recipe for sudden, catastrophic flooding completely without warning. Which brings us to Section 2, the 48-hour mold window, or as I like to call it, the ticking clock of secondary damage. So the absolute most crucial thing to remember is this timeline, 24 to 48. You literally only have 24 to 48 hours before toxic mold starts aggressively colonizing inside your wet drywall, carpets, and insulation. In a humid coastal environment, especially when the indoor temperature is sitting somewhere between 60 and 80 degrees, those spores spread like wildfire. If you delay your response by even 3 days, it's almost a guarantee that you'll be footing the bill for extensive mold remediation right on top of the initial water damage repairs. And this is exactly why grabbing a shop vac for a DIY cleanup almost always fails. It's human nature to only address the visible water, right? The puddles on the floor, the dripping ceiling, but the real enemy here is the hidden moisture. It gets trapped inside your wall cavities, underneath your subfloors, and completely soaks into your insulation. If that hidden moisture is left untreated, it will silently rot your home's structural framing from the inside out. The statistics on this are just staggering. Industry studies show that a standard visual inspection misses 40 to 60% of water intrusion. You literally cannot see the full extent of the problem with the naked eye. To actually find that hidden enemy, professional teams bring in infrared thermal imaging cameras to map the invisible temperature differences. They also use advanced digital moisture meters to track the exact moisture content deeply embedded inside your walls and concrete. Now let's move into Section 3, the 3 categories of water and defining the biohazard severity. It's absolutely essential to understand how the Institute of Inspection, Cleaning, and Restoration Certification, the IICRC, categorizes water into a really strict 3-tier system. Category 1 is just clean water from a broken supply line or rainwater. Category 2 steps it up to gray water, like the discharge from your washing machine. But Category 3, that is black water. We're talking sewage backups or coastal storm ground flooding. Treating a Category 3 biohazard like it's a simple Category 1 pipe burst is a massive health liability. It requires entirely different, highly specialized safety and disposal protocols. That takes us directly into Section 4, the professional restoration process. Let's look at the actual science of mitigation and structural drying. The industry standard here is a proven, battle-tested 3-step process. It all starts with an emergency assessment. In high-risk places like Winthrop, crews are aiming for a rapid 60-minute response time to shut off the source and start emergency extraction immediately. Because honestly, the faster those truck-mounted pumps remove the standing water, the less it penetrates into your building materials. After that comes the incredibly complex structural drying phase, followed finally by a complete property reconstruction. Now, step 2, that structural drying phase, is absolutely not an overnight fix. It's a rigorous, incredibly scientific process. Day 1 is all about heavy extraction and setting up high-velocity air movers alongside industrial dehumidifiers. Then, for the next 3 to 7 days, professionals are in there conducting daily digital moisture monitoring. They're constantly tweaking and adjusting the equipment placement to optimize the evaporation rate based exactly on the readings they're getting from your wood, drywall, and concrete. And this whole drying phase leads to the most critical checkpoint in the entire recovery process. Before a crew ever starts rebuilding the drywall or laying down branding hardwood floors in step 3, certified professionals legally verify that your structure is entirely dry. Getting this written verification confirms that the moisture levels have fully returned to normal industry standards. It's the one thing that completely protects you from the absolute nightmare of future mold callbacks.
Finally, let's look at Section 5, Navigating Insurance and Costs, the Financial Reality of Recovery. Right now, $7,000 to $11,000 is the national average cost for a water damage insurance claim. But as we know, context is absolutely everything. In coastal areas like Winthrop, especially when you're dealing with older housing stock or a flooded finished basement driven by a super high water table, those costs can easily surge past $20,000. Your financial recovery relies almost entirely on how well the damage is documented and what exactly your specific policy actually covers.
The key to financial survival here is totally understanding the distinction in your coverage. Standard homeowner policies generally cover sudden and accidental disasters, like a frozen pipe suddenly bursting inside the wall. But they will almost always exclude gradual damage caused by, say, maintenance neglect over time. And crucially for coastal residents, ground-level storm surges are absolutely excluded unless you carry a separate national flood insurance program policy. This is where a major advantage of using certified professionals really shines through: their meticulous approach to documentation. Insurance adjusters absolutely rely on hard, concrete data. When a restoration team hands over daily digital moisture logs, infrared photographic evidence of all that hidden water, and undeniable proof of their IICRC certification, it essentially removes all the friction. It allows the adjusters to swiftly approve your claim without putting you through a drawn-out, exhausting fight over coverage. So, I'll leave you with this provocative thought to consider today. Now that you understand the hidden mechanics of water damage, from the invisible moisture silently rotting wall cavities all the way to that incredibly strict 48-hour mold window, are you truly prepared to act decisively when the next pipe bursts or coastal storm hits? Remember, knowledge is your very first line of defense. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and definitely stay safe out there.